Alright, so hopefully you guys were able to kind of see our finished product here with how the facing laid to the inside and then the collar laid on top of it. And then what I did was I just went in and did a row of stay stitching, so about a 1/4 inch in, ran my the raw edge here right along the inside edge of my presser foot. Just did a row of stay stitching, and now what I need to do is I need to close up this side seam, so my underarm. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold my whole piece, my whole fabric piece, with right sides together, and I'm just going to be stitching up this very short underarm piece. So I'm just going to line up my raw edges, and this is maybe about 2.5 inches long, so it's not a long line, but it's always a good idea to put some pins in. And then I'm going to place this under my presser foot, and I have it so I'm working from the bottom of the bodice up towards the underarm. And I'm going to make sure that I have that raw edge running right at 5/8 inch seam allowance. Do some back tacking at the front of that stitch line as well as at the end. So again, just making sure that that raw edge is lined up right with 5/8. Woo! Woo! My needle is probably going to get bent here pretty soon. And then do some back tacking. Alright, put my needle on presser foot and trim those thread tails. And then what I'm going to do off camera is I'm going to go ahead and press this seam open, because we want to make sure that all the seams that whenever we sew a seam, unless it's otherwise stated, we always want to press it open. So just as a good measure, if you stitch, you press. And then I'm going to go ahead and flip everything to the outside. And what I want to do is I want to come to this underarm area, or sorry, to the shoulder area, and I want to take my hand sewing needle and I need to just tack this down to make sure that it's not going to fly away. So I want to make sure that everything is laying flat, and what I'm going to do is I'm just right there where everything was curving at the top of that neckline, I'm going to go ahead and just put a pin in, because I want to make sure that everything is going to lay flat all the way around this curve. So I'm going to put a pin in about every inch-ish around this edge. Alright, and I just want to make sure that this is going to lay flat when I go to use my hand sewing needle and sew this down. Now what you might be having, oops, I was like, what is going on here? It's because my center front kind of got pushed under. I was like, what is going on? Because that shouldn't be happening. So just make sure there's nothing accidentally folded up under something. So make sure that you have this this shape of your collar. And then what I want to do is I want to go to the inside to where that shoulder seam is, and I want to take my hand sewing needle and thread, and I'm going to go ahead and make it so that it's double thickness of thread. And what I want to do is I want to come in underneath of the bodice seam allowance, because we have some other seam allowances going on, but I'm going to come in under the bodice. And if things don't match up here, if your seam allowances don't match up, that's not the end of the world. We just want to make sure that it's not going to move around. So if your seam lines don't match, it's okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in under the seam allowance here with my hand sewing needle, and I want to pop up my my needle through the underside, and so I can catch my knot at the end. And then what I want to do is I want to make an X right over this. So I'm going to come square opposite. I want to grab, make sure when I go through that I'm going to grab my facing piece and just the seam allowance, and I can double check to make sure I'm not grabbing the collar by going to the front. If you grab the under collar, that's okay, but we definitely don't want any of this stitching to come to the front side of our garment. So then I went straight under, then I'm going to manipulate my thread so that it makes an X, and I'm going to push my needle down into all the fabric so that it pops out underneath of my seam allowance on my bodice. And what you can maybe do is you can maybe flip that up if you need to. We just want to make sure that we don't accidentally grab grab that top side of that collar. So again, I'm just going to pull that through, and so what that does is have a nice X there. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push that, I'm going to go back in because I need to somehow tie off a knot here. So I'm just going to go ahead and press my thread, so as long as you can get it in there and it's not going to show anything, I'm just going to come back to the center of that shoulder seam and then just tie a knot. Alright, and again, if you need a little help from a pin, what you can do is just put that pin down into where you want your stitch line to stop, and then gently pull on your threads, and then you can trim close to that knot that you made. All right, and that is your complete Peter Pan collar. You can go ahead and remove your pins. Hopefully you don't have any of that hand sewing on the front side. And I'm going to go ahead and see if I can put it on my dress form here, and you guys can kind of see what it would look like. And there's not any darts for fit on this bodice, but hopefully this will give you an idea of how it looks on a body. So you can see that pop, that collar, and how it should just lay flat. And if we had the complete left side here, hopefully it would hold it in place. So that's your Peter Pan collar.